What's going on? You listen to King Cam Ujumbe Podcast, Ujumbe Means Message. And yes, we are here. We are back. I hope all is well with you. Get you something to write on and something to write with. Yeah, this is going to be fun because today we are going to talk about the hidden blueprint of Ethiopian sovereignty. Yeah, this is part two from last week's discussion. And so, yeah, we're about to get into it. So, sit back, relax, try to stay warm because all of a sudden everything turned, So yeah, get you something to write on, something to write with, and we are about to get started. And so I'd like to welcome everybody in. Make sure you greet everybody as you come in, hit the like button and all the things. So we're going to talk about the hidden blueprint of Ethiopian sovereignty, Taytu Betul, and the architecture of freedom. Yeah, like I said, this is part two. Her name is Taytu. That means the sun or sunshine, right? And like the sun, she rose when Ethiopia needed light the most. And like the sun, she illuminated paths through darkness. Like the sun, her influence touched everything, even when invisible. So history remembers her as a powerful queen, a shrewd military strategist, the founder of Addis Ababa. I didn't know that. Check that video out from last week. But yeah, I didn't know she was the founder of Addis Ababa. The woman who tore up some paperwork. She didn't like how it read. So she tore that up. You see what I'm saying? So yeah. This is the new Ethiopian era. This is, say, the late 1800s into the 20th century. And so today, it says, in what ways did Taitu act as a guardian of Ethiopia's cultural and spiritual continuity? And how did her efforts create a blueprint for future leaders? How does Taitu's leadership compare to Queen? Get this, we got something else. How does she compare to Queen Tai, Queen Tai of Kemet? And what does this reveal about the role of African women in shaping spiritual and political legacy? Yeah, we back dealing with the sisters. You see what I'm saying? It's been a minute since we gave our sisters their props and everything, so it's about that time. Uh, Beyond her visible action, what are the esoteric and symbolic dimensions of Taitu's contributions to Ethiopia's transformation, and why are they significant for understanding African history? And let me see, Brother Ferguson, he said, guess who made it this time? Yeah, shout out to Brother Ferguson. Yeah, I got something for you. You're gonna love this. Yeah, shout out to Brother Ferguson. But yeah, I got this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. So uh get ready, get you some pen, get you a pen and some paper, and we're gonna get to work. What's going on, Miss Blue? All right, yeah. Greetings. Hit the like button and greet everybody as you come in. You're not late, you just in time. So yeah, I got my notes. Let's go. All right, so we're going to do a little recap. Who was she? And we're going to talk about the Treaty of Wuchale again. Then we're going to get into the heart of the matter, or the crux of the whole matter, the esoteric foundations of modernity, parallels to other African queens. Yeah, parallels to other African queens, and a bonus mini lesson. Shout out to the Njube members. We decided to put a bonus mini lesson just for you guys. All right, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Let's go. So this is, where we stand with it. We're gonna stand on business. One thing for sure, if you don't know about King Cam Ujumbe Podcast, one thing we're gonna highlight is the Nile Valley culture, Ethiopian, Kush, and Kemet. And so today is a little different. It's a mix. We have four pillars, our Njube pillars. Pillar one, Ethiopia, the source and sanctuary. Pillar two, Kemet, the blueprint of sacred civilization. We dealt with a lot. We dealt with Kemet a lot last year. The Queen of the South was our favorite. Queens of the South was great. Pillar three, Kush and Nubia. Nubia is about to be next. Get ready. And pillar four, the hidden code, spiritual science, symbols, and esoteric legacy of Africa. So it's a blend of pillar 1 and 4. Okay, so who was she? Beneath the politics and the battles lies something deeper, a profound spiritual genius. She was a genius. She was a military strategist, a guiding force shaping Ethiopia's destiny before Menelik, Iyasu, Zerditu, or even Haile Selassie. Yeah, she was the dawn before all the other modern age leaders. This is before Haile Selassie stepped in onto the world stage. And so we're going to deal with some of those things. We're going to deal with some of those concepts. But let me see, where's the little, I forgot to put that on here, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But there was something I had. I think I cut it. But yeah, we're going to talk about the esoteric foundations of modernity, parallels to Queen Taytu, the lineage of African queenship, and her final warning. Okay. So Taytu she just didn't save, say, Ethiopia from colonization. We notice almost every Ethiopian leader at some point in time saved Ethiopia from imperialism, be it diplomacy or straight up war. They saved Ethiopia. You see what I'm saying? Like it or not, love it or not. A lot of people like to enter the chat and say, they was colonized by Italy. They were not. They were not. So she spiritually architect the nation that would resist colonial power. So let's get it. So she was born in 1851 in the Samin Mountains of northern Ethiopia. Her father, Ras Batul Haile Mariam, we talked about him before. He was a provincial governor. He has some power, but not absolute power, right? Her lineage, she descended from Ethiopian nobility, but not the imperial family, though. That's going to be important. She came from some nobility. She came from a little bit of influence, but not from the imperial family. She was educated in Ge'ez, okay, the sacred language, the liturgical language of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. She was very educated in Amharic. That was the language of the courts. Orthodox theology. She had a deep understanding and knowledge of Ethiopian scripture and church tradition, and Kene poetry. So by the time she reached adulthood, Taytu was literate, which was rare, even among noble women. Theologically sophisticated. She could even debate and have conversation with priests and preachers. She was politically astute. She understood Ethiopian power dynamics, especially this was during the back end of the era of princes, where almost every noble or leader was powerful in their own right. See what I'm saying? She was culturally grounded. She mastered the poetry, church rituals, court protocol, and her marriage to Menelik II. She married him in 1883, I think. She was his fourth wife, but she became his only queen. You hear what I'm saying? She may have been his fourth wife, but she was the queen mother. You understand? Why? Not because she was the most beautiful, not because she came from the most powerful family, but because she had some influence. She saw things that Menelik could not. You see, we always need a good person in our corner like that. We always need somebody like that that'll be able to help us out, to be that visionary. Menelik thought in battles, but Taytu thought in generations, and she saw structure, she saw systems, right? Menelik focused on the present crisis. The Queen Taytu, she focused on the future. And so, yeah, but before we go further, if you want to learn more about Ethiopia, Kemet, and Kush, hit the like buttons and subscribe. We're about to get into it. So, the Treaty of Wuchale, Taytu's first victory. We discussed a little bit about this last week, but it's good that we kind of recap before we push forward. And I got some good stuff for you. In 1889, Italy decided to invade Ethiopia, right? I take that back. Before they decide to invade, they, just like a lot of European nations or European nations, they try to bring out some paperwork. Okay. Menelik thought it was okay. He thought it was cool. Italy thought he thought it was all right, but Italy knew what it was. This was a piece of paper basically legalizing their colonialization. See what I'm saying? It was legalizing their imperialism. Okay, basically legalizing them being subordinate, right? So this would happen. It was in two different languages, 2 different languages. Okay, it was in Amharic and it was in Italian. 2 different languages, Amharic and Italian, right? So, but the main focus of it was Article 17. Article 17. In Amharic, the Amharic version or the Ethiopian version, it says Ethiopia may use Italy for diplomatic relations with European powers, right? That is the African version. When the Africans read the paperwork, they see this. They say Ethiopia may use Italy for diplomatic relations with European powers, like as if they were partners. All right. But the European side, Article 17, the Italian version says this: Ethiopia must use Italy for all diplomatic relations. Nah. There's a difference between may use, like every now and then I may be able to help out or may be able to reach out to you, but must. Basically, you saying before we do anything, we gotta check with you first. No. You see the difference? May is optional. Must is mandatory. You're telling a sovereign nation what they should and shouldn't do. You see what I'm saying? And so that's the problem. And so if Ethiopia must use Italy for diplomacy, then Ethiopia, get this, has no direct relations with other nations on their own terms. Italy represents Ethiopia internationally. That's another problem. Italy controls Ethiopia's foreign policy. And here's the punch: Ethiopia is effectively an Italian protectorate, or they're subordinate to them. That's what she saw. That's what she saw. Okay. Menelik was saying, hey, this is a peaceful agreement, and it's all the things, but the queen said, no. Ethiopia would not benefit from this. Ethiopia would not benefit from it. All right. And so Taytu discovers she saw the deception. They, for centuries, Europe tried to do it through force and war. Now they try something slick and do it through paperwork, and then expect them to sign it. Nah, she knew it was a lie. So Menelik didn't speak Italian fluently. His advisors didn't catch this discrepancy, but the queen did. Yeah, the queen did. And so because she learned Italian, okay, she read both versions side by side. She lined the paperwork up line for line. She saw the trick, and she went to Menelik and said, they're trying to colonize us through this treaty. I got a question. Y'all are very intelligent. Y'all let me know. I'm wondering how many treaties was out there. Okay, how many imperialist what's the word? The word escapes me, but imperialist protocol or imperialist force or the word to come to me. How many imperialist views was carried out through the guise of a treaty? Y'all let me know. There's so many treaties that was out there, but if you didn't read that fine print, you was in trouble. You see what I'm saying? That's the reason why some of our athletes and our musicians and some of our scholars get in trouble. Why? Because we do not own the rights to this. We don't own the rights to that, or we got to keep doing the sports thing. We got to keep being on stage, just like Michael Jackson and many others. They read the fine print and said, "No, this is not fair. We got to do something different." Right? So she saw that Italy was trying to colonize Ethiopia through paperwork. And Menelik was skeptical at first, but the queen showed him the evidence, and the king was angry. And so, as we mentioned before, she tore up the treaty. And in 1893, Taytu sent a message to Italy. We reject Article 17. We reject it. And Ethiopia will conduct its own diplomacy. Okay? And if Italy Once war, we are ready. Yeah. The queen stood on business. She said, look, we know what you're trying to do. And if you try to do that, be that, and come down here and see us. Yeah. Yeah. Italy demanded Ethiopia's to honor the treaty, and she said no. Italy mobilized troops. Taytu mobilized the whole nation. This wasn't, say, a political dispute. This was warfare. See what I'm saying? This was war. And so she saw the conflict as a holy war because Italy is a Roman Catholic denomination. They're the Roman Catholic faith, and they're trying to come in. So this was a holy war defending Orthodox Christianity. This was her sacred duty, protecting the land that God gave Ethiopia. Okay, and this was also her ancestral obligation. She owed this to the ancestors. Okay, honoring those who resisted colonization before. So by 1896, the stage was set for the Battle of Adwa. And we covered this last week, so check that out when you get the chance. But understand, Adwa happened because the queen said no. Yeah, that's the reason why it's this. Shout out to One Voice of Africa. Shout out to the fam. Yeah, came just in time. Greetings, my people. Yeah, it's about that time. I got something for you guys later. You guys are gonna love this. All right, but yeah, we discussed the Battle of Adwa last week, but yeah, it happened because the queen said no, not Menelik, but the queen. She tore up the treaty and declared war. She mobilized the troops. She commanded the 5,000 soldiers on the battlefield. Now, I know last week I mentioned that I was going to try to find a picture of her playing chess and all the symbolism behind that. I couldn't find a good picture, but she was commanding 5,000 soldiers, and she cut off their water supply. You can't come all the way down here and be disrespectful. I'm just saying. So Menelik was the emperor, but Taytu was the grand architect of victory, right? Now, here it is. We did a little recap. Who was she? The Treaty of Wachule. Now we're going to get into it, y'all. The esoteric foundations of modernity, parallels to other African queens. And I got a bonus. Why? Because, hey, if you got a little time, I decided to put on socks and to keep my feet warm. I got something for my feet because, bro, it's cold. It is like really cold. So y'all folk from up north, I know some of y'all from Canada talking about they ain't nothing. Man, I'm in Texas. This is different. I ain't got time to be playing with that. But yeah, so I got the socks and the house shoes. You stand me? Let's go. So we got a mini lesson at the end. You guys are gonna love it. We're gonna have some fun. Now, but before we get into the esoteric foundations of modernity, I got a question. Get judged. Would you rather get judged by the 42 judges of the Hall of Judgment, or get roasted by Tahuti? Like and comment below. Do you want to be judged by the 42, or get scolded on, or roasted, or just gonna get fired up by the Netaru Tahuti? Man, because the thing is, I think we forget that Africans and African customs, there's some kind of sense of humor. Everybody's not that serious, bro. So I'm just saying, like last week, my students were about to take an exam and they were stressed. And I said, y'all study. Why you so serious? If I'm not worried, you shouldn't be. Right? So let me know. Like and comment below. Get judged by the 42 or get roasted by Jehudi. All right. Let me see what the people say. Yeah, let me know. All right, let's get it. All right, and of course, 50% off of Firmo, FIRMOO glasses. The code is RJQE50. RJQE50. I don't have my glasses. I was in a rush. Hey, hush. Don't say nothing. Let's go. Oh, here's another question. Fam. Forget it. Y'all read this. Forget a spell mid-ritual. Would you rather forget a spell mid-ritual or sneeze during a sacred chant? Which one? Let me know. Would you? I'm talking about you deep into it now. You deep in thought and everything, and then and then you forget the words, or you deep in meditation, and you sneeze. You know. Let me know, y'all. Let's go. All right. So the esoteric foundation of modernity, beyond infrastructure, Taitu's hidden blueprint was evident and was relevant, right? Most historians focus on her military and political achievements, but there was, just like all the other African leaders, there was some form of spirituality behind it, right? There's some form of power behind it. So, but they miss her cultural and spiritual work. That's the hidden blueprint. The spiritual work, okay? She laid the spiritual work and blueprint she laid for Ethiopia's future. So Empress Taytu excelled not only in matters of war, but also in times of peace. She was a champion of development. She wasn't just always fighting somebody or always arguing with somebody. Okay, she focused on the future. When she founded Addis Ababa, in the final decades of her reign, she witnessed a period of modernization, which gradually opened Ethiopia up to global trade and greater technical expertise. Right, but here's what modernization meant to her. Okay, it was not westernization. Okay, just because I have modern things don't mean I have to look like Europe or the United States. Right? Modernization does not mean colonialism. Okay, by consent. But Ethiopians' modernity means it was progress rooted in their tradition. So, education was part of it. Okay, education was part of it. Taytu held a dominant position in determining Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church policy and promoted literacy, church schools, and administrative training. So education is key. So let me see what the people say. Would you rather sneeze? Yeah, because forgetting words misspell, that's gonna mess them up. That's gonna mess up the whole, like the Marvel Universe timeline, time continuum. That's gonna mess them up. Yeah. So, but yeah, so Ethiopia's survival depends on educated Ethiopians. A lot of people say nowadays that there's nothing to that college education. It's a lot to it. Okay, and let me mess around and find out. You understand? Because it's not just a piece of paper. That it's the whole process of learning and seeking knowledge and gaining knowledge and so many other things to get to that paper, right? So she realized that Ethiopia's survival depends on educated Ethiopians, not Ethiopians educated in Europe, not Ethiopians who worship European culture, right? But but Ethiopians who could read Ge'ez, okay? Ethiopians who know Ethiopian history, Ethiopians who understand Orthodox theology, because time and time again, there has been people that's tried to, under the guise of evangelism or missions, try to convert the Ethiopian Orthodox people to Protestantism or Roman Catholic Church. Okay, but education, the Ethiopians who were educated in knowledge, they understood their theology and their story, and mastered modern skills like engineering, medicine, and law. That was her focus. Okay, education, training the next generation. So she established church schools, okay, administrator training programs, court scribes who can negotiate with foreigners in multiple languages. Based on her experience, Ethiopia needed people who understood legalese and legalistic language. Okay, church schools again, teaching literacy and theology, administrative training programs, preparing governors, judges, tax collectors. She was developing a system, right? Then she had the Per Ankh model, the House of Light model, Ethiopia's House of Light. So let me slow this down. Let me break this down. What Taytu was really doing with education, she was kind of emulating as it were, emulating what was done in Kemet. See, in ancient Kemet, they had the Per Ankh, or the House of Light, not a school, not a library, but a sacred institution where priests could be trained, scribes could learn the meta nature or hieroglyphics, doctors studied medicine, architects designed temples, astronomers tracked the stars. Knowledge, this thing wasn't just academic. You see what I'm saying? These things, it was ongoing. It was a sacred thing to learn. We got to get back to that. We as a culture got to get back to um, seeking knowledge as if it was a sacred moment. See, nowadays, most of our young people go to school just because they want to play sports. I don't know about you guys, but for the most part, 90% of students at a school are there for to play some kind of game or some kind of ball. Okay, we as a culture got to get back to telling them that seeking knowledge and gaining knowledge is a sacred act, and it is an important act. And I told my students at the high school, I said, the way education should be done is that once you graduate, you're able to teach one of these classes. That's how it should be done. That is education. That is education, right? So she was developing a sacred institution. Taytu received this revived this model in Ethiopia. Why? Because the era of princes before that kind of threw everything off. So her church schools weren't only teaching people to read; they were creating things. We got to be creative, okay? And what were they creating? They was creating scribes, right? They was creating scribes who could negotiate with the Europeans, okay? Administrators who couldn't be corrupted, and theologians who could defend their faith, right? And back to the scribes. Scribes were the writers, the authors. If Ethiopians can't read treaties, they'll get tricked. Bottom line, if you can't read the paperwork, you're gonna get finessed. Okay. If Ethiopians can't speak the European languages, they will be exploited. That's the reason why words are important. I heard a rapper about a year ago saying that we shouldn't be reading books. What are you talking about? That's crazy. So she trained court interpreters, fluent in Amharic, Italian, French, and English. That was the major language hub of that era. Legal scribes, those who could read European contracts, diplomatic officials, those who understood European policies, right? This is how she caught Italy's deception in that treaty. Okay. And now dealing with administrators, right? Administrators who couldn't be corrupted. The Empress established training programs for provincial governors, tax collectors, judges, military officers. They trained their own. First of all, they had the schools for it. Then they encouraged people to go to their schools. You see what I'm saying? We gotta be ready for that. Okay. What are we prepared to do? Are we prepared to reach and teach our own? Right? We have some examples of it. Right? And so she had the administrators, okay, taught them Ethiopian law, okay, rooted in the Feta Nagast, okay, Orthodox theology, so they can resist the Roman Catholic Church or the Protestant influence. She taught they learned Ethiopian history, so they know what they were protecting and why they was protecting it, right? And modern administration, accounting, logistics, and diplomacy. Why was that important for the administrators? Was she understood colonialization doesn't happen through military invasion. It wasn't by force. It was through deception and lies, right? It happens when your governors take European bribes. It happens when your judges enforce European laws. It happens when your officers defect to or deflect to or yield to European armies. Yeah, she saw that. So, and your tax collectors will steal for European companies. Matter of fact, right now, in the continent of Africa, there are some foreign nations that have started to buy out African land, and now the Africans that are in the area got to yield or pay taxes or do things, do what the foreigners tell them to do. That's wild. It's happening. But the Empress was was trying to defend Ethiopia against infiltration. And then the theologians, okay, who could defend the faith, right? These are like one of the most important things because they realize that imperialism also can happen through religion. Even though, even though I got to stand flat-footed on it, even though Ethiopia is and has been the majority Christian, more specifically Ethiopian Christians, okay, what happened is other ideas could infiltrate, and then once they infiltrate them with those ideas, here comes the other things. Here comes the other problems. European colonialization wasn't political, it was also spiritual. Okay. Europeans said Ethiopian Christianity is primitive. That's what they would believe. Okay, you need to submit to Rome, or you need to go to this Baptist church or this Methodist church or whatever, and you'll be saved or whatever. They will flip it. Your liturgy is wrong, or your theology is heretical. That's what they'll say. So the preachers and the priests were trained to defend against that. Okay, the monks were trained, and they would respond. They can easily respond. They say we've been Christians since the third century, before most of Europe. Okay, and also, all right, Brother Ferguson, we have the Ark of the Covenant, and you guys been looking for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We haven't forgot about that. Our bishops can trace their lineage or their hierarchy or their line of procession or progression or whatever. I'm sorry, I think it's succession. I think their lineage back to Alexandria. Your Pope claims authority we never recognize. How about that? We don't recognize the Pope. So don't tell us about your Christianity, and we've been doing this longer than you guys. Okay. This theological confidence protected Ethiopia from Catholic missionary infiltration, Protestant evangelism, and European religious imperialism. Yeah, that's what that was. That's what they was protecting from. Some people may talk down on that or whatever, but if we're going to talk about African nations, we got to also be okay with talking about what they believed in. Everybody wasn't, say, into the African spiritual system. Every nation was not, and so we got to be fair. We got to be fair there and realize that there are some Muslim nations in Africa, and there's also some Christian nations in Africa, as well as those who follow African spiritual system. We just can't be Ma'at all day like that. We can't do it. If it's not there, it's not there, right? So this tells the story of how Ethiopia maintained their sovereignty. So then there was a cultural preservation. Okay, cultural preservation. Taytu, she worked to preserve traditional arts, weaving, jewelry, sacred iconography, oral poetry, manuscript traditions, copying as text by hand. She knew if Ethiopia loses its culture, it loses its soul. Bottom line, right? If she loses its culture, you lose the soul. And if Ethiopia loses its soul, it becomes another colony, even if technically independent on paperwork. She funded scriptoriums where monks copied ancient texts. She commissioned church paintings depicting Ethiopian saints, not the ones with blonde hair and blue eyes. Their saints look like them for the most part. She sponsored poets who sang of Ethiopia's sacred history. This wasn't nostalgia. This was cultural warfare she was doing. Cultural preservation. So why was that? Why was that happening? Why was that happening? Okay, let me explain it a little bit. Let me explain it a little bit. Here's the thing, because she understood something that most leaders at that time didn't. You can win every battle from a military standpoint, but if you lose the culture, you lost the war. You hear what I'm saying? If you can win every battle, you can win every war, but if you lose the culture, you lost. You're done. Think about it. Think about what happened Like, say, for example, in West Africa, they resisted militarily, but it was they was eventually crushed. They had cultural identity, that's fine, but it was eroded through missionaries. They had the languages, but then it was replaced with French and English. We know that the result is political independence, but cultural colonization. That was West Africa. Then in South Africa, they had military resistance. They was eventually crushed. Cultural identity eroded by the apartheid. They had language, but now it's some kind of Dutch English dominance. Result, there was political independence, South Africa or the southern region, but still a colony in one shape, form, or fashion. Let's call a spade, okay? Because there are a lot of Wazungus in South Africa, and they're telling the indigenous Africans that they can't go there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some people may dislike it and may unfollow. I don't care, but that's the truth. That's what that is. All right. Then we have North Africa. Bro, what's going on with Morocco right now? You're in the continent of Africa and you lost a soccer game and you're and you're very disrespectful to the people of Senegal. You're showing your hand. You had to like some people that we know, right? They military resistance and cultural identity. That bled into Arabization. Languages became Arabic, replaced the Amazigh and Coptic. Result, it was a cultural shift, right? But Ethiopia, they had the military resistance. They won victories, like the victory at Adwa. Cultural identity was preserved. The language, religion, and the art was preserved. The languages, Amharic and Ge'ez, is still used to this day. The result is political and cultural sovereignty. When you, again, when you lose your culture, you lose the war. See what I'm saying? Let's continue. So Taytu, the queen, she fought on three fronts simultaneously. The military, she defeated Italy. Politically, she tore up the treaty. And culturally, she preserved Ethiopian identity. Most leaders not only fight probably only fight one or two fronts, but she understood if you don't fight front number three, the culture front, you lose everything. Yeah, you lose everything. So how does she preserve this culture? How did she preserve this culture? It was manuscript preservation, oral poetry, and sacred iconography, right? And so dealing with the paperwork, the manuscript, Taytu funded scriptoriums, like I said before, because manuscripts mean memory, right? If you destroy the manuscripts, you can erase the history. We've seen it over and over again. Whenever the Europeans come in and they take over a city or a piece of land, they destroy the history or the libraries. We've seen this playbook. The poetry, Kene, is Ethiopian oral poetry. For example, the fine arts, the expression. She wanted to keep that. One of the most, one of the things that are not funded as much in our education system is fine arts. Why? Because that encourages creative thinking and critical analysis. You see what I'm saying? So even that, by them reducing the fine arts budget, by them reducing the art programs and things like that, that's a way of reducing that culture. Okay, and of course the sacred iconography, where the people that they drew and painted look like them. Okay, the art shapes the imagination. If Ethiopians would see the white European Jesus, that's mental imperialism right there. But if they see an African Ethiopian Jesus, that's cultural sovereignty. Somebody asked the question: if the Tuba or the Wazungu knew that the Jesus was black, would they still worship him? Or they knew that he was black the whole time? Right? So yeah, let's get it. And church buildings, that was the spiritual anchors, right? Okay, because the church was spiritual anchors, centers of prayer, fasting, and liturgy, educational centers, teaching literacy, theology, and history. They were the community hubs, settling disputes, distributing charity, symbols of sovereignty. Ethiopian churches was under Ethiopian control. That's by this time the Ethiopian Christians have emancipated themselves even from the Coptic church. So they were sovereign. They had their own ideals and their own belief systems and processes. So every church that Taitu built said this land belongs to the Trinity, this land belongs to the Solomonic line, and this land belongs to Ethiopia. So she built churches in almost every newly conquered territory, solidifying Ethiopian control, the border regions, marking sacred boundaries and territories. It was like wherever she went, she did establish a church. That was strategic and that was important. This sacred architecture was political technology. And so her vision for modern Ethiopia was rooted in tradition, political sovereignty. Adwa proved that. Economic modernization. Addis Ababa became the trade hub. Educational infrastructure, church schools and administrative training, cultural continuity, preserved manuscripts, arts and poetry, spiritual cohesion. And this is why Menelik II would be able to modernize Ethiopia without losing its cultural soul. This is how Taytu was able to maintain the Orthodox tradition during her reign, and how Haile Selassie could resist Mussolini in 1935. It's because of her. They were building on Empress Taytu's foundation. She was the architect, and they were the builders, right? Now, so we did a recap, the Treaty with Chule, the esoteric foundation of modernity. Now we're going to talk about her parallels to other African queens. This is going to be fun. Here it is. And I got the bonus, all right? Got the little mini lesson at the end. All right, now, parallels to other African queens. Get this, okay? Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this. But Taytu Betul, Ethiopia's legendary empress and heroine, she played a pivotal role in securing Ethiopia's independence from European colonization, paving the way for the decolonization of other African nations, right? But think about it. Ethiopia would not exist as a country today without her bravery, right? So, but she wasn't by herself. She wasn't alone in this process, right? She was part of a queen construct, right? And so she had other queens before her and after her that all had some similarities, right? Yeah, I thought about it. Think about her name, Queen Taytu and Queen Tai or Queen Tai of Kemet. Okay, Queen Tai was a template for the Empress Taytu. Okay, let's go. Okay, because the parallels are there, right? Get this, Queen Tai's background. Okay, she was the matriarch of Ma'at. Okay, she was born a commoner, not a royal blood, right? She married Amenhotep III the Great. You see what I'm saying? The 14th century before Common Era. She became co-regent. She ruled alongside of him, as you see this wonderful picture here. They're sitting right next to each other. And she was the advisor to her son, Akhenaten, and the grandmother of King Tut. Okay. She wasn't just the queen's wife. Okay. Queen Tai, she depicted, she was seen in royal court, equal size to the pharaoh. She was given her own temple, worshipped as a living goddess, not in Egypt and in Nubia. Okay. Consulted by foreign kings. Her name appears on diplomatic paperwork. She was revered for wisdom, called the great royal wife, the mistress of Upper and Lower Egypt. She was one of the most politically astute and powerful queens of ancient Kemet. And Tai played a crucial role in maintaining stability during her husband's reign, which was characterized by wealth, opulence, and extensive construction projects. And she was instrumental in religious development, particularly in the promotion of the sun god Aten, a theological shift that would later be expanded by her son, Akhenaten, right? And so Here's some more parallels. Tai was born as Naro. Her father was a courtier or a court clerk. Taytu was born to nobility, not to an imperial family. Both women rose to power through what? Through intelligence, strategic marriage, spiritual authority, and political skill. It was not through bloodline, but it was through brilliance, right? And so there was some spiritual authority, right? They both like Tai was a high priestess of Ma'at, okay, and also Taytu was a devoted Ethiopian Orthodox Christian, okay, prayed 7 times a day. Both women understood political power without spiritual grounding is unstable, okay. Spiritual authority plus political strategy is unshakable. Queen Tai performed rituals for Pharaoh's military campaigns, agricultural abundance, cosmic balance. Empress Taytu, her prayers were for Ethiopia's survival, Victoria at Adwa, and cultural preservation. Shout out to the fam. What's going on? Yeah, yeah, yes, the Queen Mother. Yeah, we plays no games about Queen Tai. We don't play. That's King Tut's granny. We don't play about that. Yes, indeed. And so there was also they were not of royal origin, had spiritual authority, and there was diplomatic geniuses, right? Queen Tai negotiated with the kings of modern Syria, Babylon, and Assyria in modern Turkey. So Queen Tai was known throughout the world, right? Not only that, she Queen Tai, the foreign kings wrote letters to Queen Tai, okay? And they said to Tai, the great royal wife, not to the pharaoh or the pharaoh's wife, to her. And get this, Taytu, Queen Taytu would actually mirror this, okay? When we see her dealing with Italy, okay, when we see dealing with France and Britain and Russia, all right. And so European diplomats quickly learned that if you don't speak to the empress, you're not going to get any help at all, right? If you want something for Ethiopia, you need to talk to the empress. Okay, Menelik will say whatever she decides, right? And cultural preservation. Tai's reign conceded with religious upheaval. Her son tried to replace one Egyptian concept with another. The temples were closed, priests were persecuted, traditional religion was under attack. And so Tai quietly preserved the old traditions. And I would like to still believe that she, while her son was doing one thing, she would, just like anybody's grandmother, would take their grandchildren and teach them the old ways. I would like to believe that. She protected the priesthoods, ensured temples survived, prepared for restoration, which happened under King Tut. And get this, the Empress of Ethiopia, Taytu, okay, she didn't stop. She didn't want European colonialization all around Ethiopia. While this was happening, while the Great Scramble was happening, or the scramble for Africa was happening, all around Ethiopia, African kingdoms were falling. European culture was replacing African culture. Christian missionaries were attacking the Orthodox churches, but the empress quietly preserved Ethiopians' identity, protected the Orthodox Church, ensured manuscripts and art survived, and prepared Ethiopia for post-colonial rule, right? So, yeah, even though Queen Tai was around 3,000 years ago and Taytu about 130, they understood the same thing. Queens don't react to crisis. They prepare for the next generation, right? So that's Queen Tai, right? But there are some other African queens who operated like Taytu. Doing my little homework, I realized there were some other queens out there that was operating the same way. She wasn't unique in the grand scheme of things, right? She was part of a continuum. She was part of this grand story of African queens, right? Lineage of African queens who advised kings spiritually, led troops in war, prepared prepared and persevered the culture, resisted colonialization strategically. This lets me know that there was some other queens, right? Here we go. Let me know if I missed one though. Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba, right? Queen Nzinga, or basically of Congo. No, I stand corrected. I think Angola, I think. All right. So Queen Nzinga fought the Portuguese for 40 years, like Taytu. She negotiated as an equal. When Portuguese demanded she kneel during negotiations, she said to her servant to kneel and sat on her servant's back as a throne. Since they didn't have no chair, she made her own. Basically, I don't kneel to nobody, right? And the Queen Nzinga led troops personally. Okay, Nzinga commanded her armies into battle, not from a tent, not from another city, not from the palace, but on the battlefield, right? Just like Taytu at Adwa. And also Queen Nzinga used religion strategically. She used the culture. Now, granted, she converted to Christianity to go negotiate with Portugal, but then reconverted back to African traditional religion. Why? Because she realized that wasn't working for their situation, right? All right. So then later converted back when she needed European allies. So, but she understood at that point religion was seen as it was used as a tool. So if the Europeans were using it as a tool, the Africans should do it too, to their advantage, right? Taytu did the same, using Orthodox Christianity to unify Ethiopia spiritually, framed war against Italy as a holy war. Why? Because Italy was of the Roman Catholic Church, right? Now I think the fam is talking. Arts equals survival. You are correct, sir. Shout out to Brother Ferguson. Yeah, art equals survival. You got to do it. Somebody got to draw the story, draw the picture, tell the story, right? Or draw the story, right? Yeah. Yeah. Jadami, William, yeah, Nzinga, yeah. We're gonna cook. We got a few more. Okay. So, and the Queen Nzinga resisted colonialization for decades. Nzinga died at the age of 80, still fighting, still resisting, but she was unconquered. And of course, our Empress Taytu died in 1918. Ethiopia still independent, still unconquered because of her. So one woman's refusal to submit can hold off an empire for generations. Right? So we got Queen Nzinga. Now we have Kandeke Amani Renas of Kush. You know I had to bring Kush into the game, right? I had to do it. Amani Renas was the one-eyed warrior queen of Nubia. She lost an eye in battle against Rome, but she kept fighting and she won. Yeah, that was the war that Rome likes to forget. That was a black eye, right? And so she fought Rome and won, right? And so like Taytu, she defeated a global superpower for Rome, and at the height of their power, was the most powerful empire on the earth. Amani Renas defeated the Roman Emperor Augustus Caesar, not just once, but multiple times. Remember, Rome tried to invade Nubia several times, right? Taytu defeated Italy in 1896, a European colonial power. Both women proved that African queens can defeat empires. It can be done. Okay, and they forced the enemy. Both of them forced the enemy to negotiate peace. Yeah, Amani Renas, after years of war, Rome gave up. They said, "Forget it, bro. They doing too much." And the eye smiters, the Magi was out there with them arrows, catching them folk, catching them where they couldn't see, right? And so they signed a peace treaty with the Queen Amani Renas, and Rome paid taxes. We discussed that. Rome paid taxes to Nubia. Yeah. Rome paid Africa and not the other way around, right? And we check out this video. Kandeke Amani Renas, the one-eyed queen, infinite vision, the woman who defeated Rome. We got that video. Check it out. But Taytu forced Italy to recognize Ethiopian sovereignty, right? First of all, you guys were liars. Second of all, you can't tell us what to do, right? She renounced all claims on Ethiopia, and you better pay money, right? Pay reparations. They defended sacred boundaries for Amanirenas. The war was about protecting the Nubian temples, keeping Rome out of sacred Nubian land, maintaining spiritual independence. And for our Empress Taytu, the war was about protecting the Ethiopian church, right? Keeping Italy out of the sacred Ethiopian land, because they know, and it has happened before, that when a foreign entity or a foreign group would come in, they would raid their churches and take their sacred texts and sacred relics and burn the building. It has happened before. So the empress was trying to protect them from that, and she wanted to maintain their spiritual sovereignty. Both women, okay, Amanirenas and the empress, understood that it wasn't political; it was a spiritual warfare. Okay. Now, Amanirenas had one eye, but she had infinite vision. She lost an eye, but her spiritual vision was perfect. Okay. She could see the Rome's weakness and Nubia's strength, and she saw the long game. Okay. And Taytu, she was able to see what she had both eyes, right? But she saw, like Amanirenas, beyond the battlefield, beyond what was happening in the present. She saw the future. She saw the future generations of Ethiopia. So physical sight is less important than spiritual vision, right? So we got Nzinga, Amanirenas, and we have, yep, the Queen of Ghana, Ashantewa of the Ashanti. She ruled at the same time. She ruled at about the same time as Queen Empress Taytu, right? She led the Ashanti rebellion against Britain in the 1900s. And get this, she was 60 years old when she did it. Yeah, yeah. She was, man, 60? Throwing hands at 60. That was serious, right? Like Taytu, okay? She shamed the men into action. She had to tell them, bro, y'all supposed to be the men. Y'all supposed to be the leaders, okay? When the Ashanti chiefs hesitated to fight Great Britain, Ya Ashantiwa stood up and said, if you, the men of Ashanti, would not go forward, then the women will, or we will. We, the women, will. She said, I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight the white men. We will fight till the last of us falls in the battlefield. She shamed the men to battle. She said, y'all need to come out here. And Empress Taytu said something similar when the nobles hesitated before Adwa, before the Battle of Adwa. Are you afraid of these Italians? I will lead the troops myself if you were not. Yeah, that's what Empress said. Both women understood sometimes you have to shame people into remembering their courage. You got to let them know. You know, you got to, even when it's not popular. And they and get this, they mobilized an army. Ya Ashantiwa, it wasn't just talk. It wasn't just a post or a blog. She got active. She got out there. She mobilized thousands of Ashanti warriors. She commanded them in battle. She fought the British Empire for months. And Taytu, Empress Taytu, commanded 5,000 troops at Adwa. Okay, women warriors, male soldiers, all under her leadership. And get this, age is irrelevant here. Age is number to number. Ya Ashantiwa was 60 years old. Taytu was 45. So none of them was young at this point. And it didn't matter, right? Purpose does not retire. Just because you're older does not mean you're supposed to stop all of a sudden. Keep going. Okay, there's some people in my age, a little bit older, saying, hey, I'm gonna chill out, I'm gonna stop doing this. No, we got to keep going. We got to keep going for the future, for the next generation. Continue, right? And inspired by moving forward, by continuing, they inspire future resistance. Britain defeated Ya Ashantiwa's rebellion. They exiled her, and she died in 1921. But her resistance inspired Ghana's independence movement in the 1950s. See what I'm saying? So so in Taitu's victory at Adwa inspired Pan-Africanism. Ethiopia is a symbol of African resistance. Every independence movement in Africa, even now, even though some people are trying to pin us against each other, Africans against the diaspora and vice versa. When it comes down to it, Ethiopia is still one of our torches when it comes our guiding light when it comes down to sovereignty and independence, right? So even if you don't see the victory, your resistance plants seeds for the next generation. So we have Queen Nzinga, we have Queen Amani Renas, we have Queen Ya Shantiwa, right? Who's next? Queen Mother Idia of Benin. Okay, shout out to brother Tony Hawkins. He went out there to that area and hung out with the people of Benin. It was great. So yeah. So he said, yeah, we got to keep going until the wheels fall off. Yeah, yes, sir. Brother Ferguson said it correct. We got to keep going until the wheels fall off. And so we have another great queen, Queen Mother Idia of Benin. And correct me if I'm mispronouncing it, fam. Of the 16th century, just like Queen Taytu, Queen Mother Idia was a military strategist, spiritual advisor to her son Oba Isigi, okay, Oba Isigi, a warrior who fought in battles. Like Taytu, she was a spiritual and political power. Idia wasn't just the Oba's mother; she was his spiritual advisor. She performed rituals before battles. She interpreted dreams and omens. She guided his decisions through spiritual insight. Get this, of course, Taytu was a devout Ethiopian Orthodox Christian. She prayed 7 times a day, and she did the same for her husband Menelik. She advised him spiritually as to what was going on, right? She interpreted the events through biblical and prophetic lens. She made decisions based on spiritual discernment. And both were military, they had a military to command, right? Idia led troops in the Adwa War, right? She didn't stay at home. She didn't stay at the palace. She went into battle, just like Empress Taytu, okay? And important, there's artistic legacy. The famous Benin ivory mask, some of the most iconic African art depict Queen Mother Ada. This is one of them, okay? I think this one is made of bronze, I think. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's made of bronze. Okay, let me know. But her image is being seen, not her son. Okay, but her. Why? Because her influence was that powerful. Just like the Ethiopian art depicts Taytu at Adwa, commanding the troops at Mekele, playing chess with the Europeans, founding Addis Ababa. Her image is her legacy. So the mothers can be like warriors. Warriors can be mothers also. And sometimes the most powerful ruler is the king. It's the king's mother. You see what I'm saying? So we talked about, get this, we talked about Queen Tai. We talked about Queen Nzinga. We talked about Kandeke, Amani Renas, and Ya Ashantiwa, and Queen Mother Benin. But now we got to go back to Kemet. The continuum goes back to Kemet. We gotta go back. We gotta go back because, yeah, we can't forget Queen Hatshepsut. What we're doing, we got to yield because Pharaoh Insubiti or the Sematawi Hatshepsut ruled for 20 years, built temples, led military campaigns. Okay, so we can't forget about her. Okay, and Nefertiti, okay, co-ruled with her husband Akhenaten, appeared in royal art as equal to Pharaoh. And by the way, if I'm missing a queen, if I'm missing a famous queen, like and comment. Let me know. Okay, of course, Queen Tai, but fam, we can't forget Queen Sobekneferu of the Middle Kingdom. We can't forget about her. We can't forget about her influence and how she tried to maintain order and basically save the soul of Kemet, right? We can't forget about her, right? But so there was a pattern. There was a pattern of African queenship. What do all this? What did they all have in common? They had spiritual authority. They weren't just politically powerful; they were spiritually powerful. Okay, Taytu from the Orthodox Church. Nzinga used Christianity and African traditional religion strategically. Amani-Renas defended Nubian temples and sacred land. Yashantiwa invoked the Ashanti spiritual traditions. Idia perform rituals and interpret omens. I think, to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, they were of the Yoruba tradition. Okay, and Tai was the high priestess of Ma'at, and Heteru. So they had spiritual power. The spiritual power gave them political authority. They also had military leadership. They didn't just support male warriors, they led the warriors, they led the armies. Taitu commanded 5,000 troops to fight against Italy. And Zinga led armies for 40 years. Amani-Renas defeated Rome in battle, straight up and down, just defeated them. Yashanti mobilized the Ashanti rebellion against who? Against the British. Yeah. Idia fought in wars, and Hatshepsut led military campaigns as pharaoh before her stepson, Jehuti Mesu III, right? Yeah. Empress Menelik, yeah. Keep them coming, yeah. Empress Menelik, yes, indeed. Yeah, and they were warriors, not decorations. They was focused on cultural preservation. They understood if you lose your culture, you lose the soul, and if you lose the soul, you're done. But remember, if you lose the culture, you lost the war, right? They preserved the language. Taitu promoted Ka'ez. They preserved the religion, okay, the art, oral tradition, okay, and they had strategic vision. They thought in generations, not just in years, right? Taitu founded Addis Ababa, still Ethiopia's capital 130 years later. Nzinga resisted the Portuguese, okay, but now, and of course, Angola eventually became independent, right? Amani-Renas defeated Rome. Nubia remained independent for centuries. And shout out to the fam. We're going to talk about Nubia in a few minutes, though, because there is an empire that also resisted Europeans. We're going to talk about that. We got a bonus. We got a bonus. Hold tight. Yashantiwa inspired Ghana's independence 57 years later. They planted trees under and whose shade they wouldn't sit under. And that's the thing. One of my mentors told me, his name was Leonard Davis. He said, we plant shade trees that we may not ever sit under. You see what I'm saying? And that's what it's about. Okay. And Taitu's place in this lineage is that she stands in the lineage of African queens who saw beyond the visible, okay, led this with spiritual authority, fought with military courage, preserved cultural identity, and thought generationally. This wasn't an exception. This had to be done. Okay. She was the continuation of African traditions of powerful women, tradition that goes back 3,500 years, even beyond that. Let's be honest. Tradition that says African queens are not symbolic, they were and are important. Okay. African queens are they don't just inspire, they command. They don't just support kings, they guide empires, right? But why does it matter? Why is it important? When you study Queen Taitu alongside Amani-Renas and Zinga and many others, you realize that African women leadership is not a modern thing. It is ancient, it is traditional, it is spiritual, and it's unstoppable. We sometimes us fellas, we got to get out the way. We got to get out the way. Let our sisters lead in those areas that they should lead at. Okay, let them help us. Right? We can't. It's enough of that back and forth about whatever table you're supposed to bring stuff to or whatever. We need each other. That's why it matters, right? And so, Taitu proved that what her ancestors proved: one woman, spiritually grounded, brilliant, and absolutely unwilling to submit, can change the world around them. And Taitu, in Italian memory, she hurt them. And she hurt Italy because she hurt their pride, because the linguistic gold standard was standard for a lofty woman. This one popular phrase, "Chi se crede di essere la reina Taitu," it translates, Who does she think? Who does she think she is? Who do you think you are? Even in Italy, the nation she humiliated. I'm sorry. Her name became synonymous with powerful, uncompromising femininity. That's legacy. You see what I'm saying? But Taytu gave them a warning. This is what she saw. This is what was coming. This is what was happening. After Menelek's stroke in 1906, Taytu ruled as de facto regent for years, but Ethiopia's nobility hated her. Unfortunately. Why? It's not because she was incompetent. It was because she was too competent. Yeah, she was too smart. She appointed loyal governors, cutting off corrupt nobles, reformed tax collection, stopping noble embezzlement, modernized the military, threatening noble power, centralized authority, weakening the regional lords. The nobles conspired. They spread rumors. Taytu had too much power. She was controlling the king, even though the king was ill. She's dangerous. And so in 1910, they forced her out. Yeah. 1910, they forced her out, and she passed away. Menelik died in 1913, and Taytu died in 1918. Exiled from our own country, erased for the most part. But here's the sad part. Taytu saw what was coming. She warned, if Ethiopia does not modernize, we will fail. If we don't educate our people, they will be exploited. If we don't preserve our culture, we will lose our identity. If we don't centralize power, we will fracture. Nobody listened. And guess what happened? Lige Iyasu ruled from 1913 to 1916. That's Menelek's grandson. He became the emperor at 17. He kind of flirted with Islam, alienated the Orthodox Church, allied with the Ottoman Empire during World War II, alienating Britain and France. And he was removed or deposed in 1916. Right? Then we have Empress Taytu, who ruled from 1916 to 1930. She tried to restore the Orthodox tradition, resisted modernization, but Ethiopia was stagnated. It couldn't move forward. Okay, she saw, the empress saw it coming. Then we have the great Haile Selassie, right? He ruled from 1930 to 1974. Yes, he modernized Ethiopia. He did, right? But Italy invaded at the beginning of World War II, 1935 to 1941. And Ethiopia was occupied by Italy for 5 years. Eventually, he was overthrown in a communist regime. And the thing is, a lot of what we do as African people, Africans in the diaspora, we will pick up other people's worldviews and how to handle business and throw the baby out with the bathwater. We will disregard our great leaders for this foreign idea. And that's what happened. But if Ethiopia had listened to the empress, modernization would have happened sooner. Education would have been widespread. Cultural identity would have been stronger. Italian invasion might have been prevented. But they didn't listen. So because she was a woman, because she threatened noble powers and the status quo, because she saw too far ahead. Even in failure, she won, because Ethiopia that survived Ethiopia, but because Ethiopian that survived Italian invasion, that was Taytu's Ethiopia. The churches she built was still standing. The churches she founded was still educating. The schools she founded was still educating. The cultural preservation she started is still protecting identity. The capital she founded is the heart of Ethiopia. She's not forgotten, right? Yeah, it says the Queen's not help me out. Nyabingi. Yeah, Queen's Nyabingi. Okay. Brother Ferguson says, and Ford people are always not listened to. Yeah. People who have vision, not at all. Yeah. Yeah. You're correct. You're right. You're right. You're right. Entitled to Story teaches us spiritual vision creates political reality. Okay. Women's leadership isn't just supporting men, but creating a new destiny. Cultural preservations is as important as military defense. Okay, modernization doesn't require westernization. We do not have to look like the people in the United States or Europe to be educated and modern, right? One person refusal to submit can change history. So when King Menelik's health began to decline around 1906, Taytu began to make decisions on his behalf, angering her rivals through her appointment of favorites and relatives and so on. She ruled as de facto regent for years, right? The son, but even though she after that she died quietly in exile. For basically, she died in 1918, February 11, 1918, because from heart failure. I would say she died of a broken heart, right? But as the sun sets, the light still remains, right? The light still remains. Her name is Taytu, meaning sun. And like the sun, she rose when Ethiopian leader needed light. She illuminated the path through darkness. She touched everything, even when invisible. And the sun sets every day, but its light doesn't disappear. I'm saying it's absorbed by the earth and nourishes the plants and the people, everything around. And even though Taytu set, her light still remains. She still shines in every Ethiopian church, every as manuscript, and every child educated in her schools. Matter of fact, somebody on TikTok told me that their grandparent was married because Queen Taytu arranged that marriage. It's pretty cool. The Sunshine Empress, the Sunshine Empress is gone, but Ethiopia still basks in her light, right? So, yeah. If you want to learn more about Ethiopia, Kim and Kush, like and subscribe. But yeah, we're not done. We're not done. I got something. We're talking about Pillar 1, Ethiopia, the source of sanctuary. Number 4, the hidden code. I got something for y'all. All right, but before I get to the fun stuff, really quick, don't forget to hit the like button. But yeah, textbooks and African History of Africa by Zainab Badawi, really good. Ethiopian, the Orthodox Church of Ethiopia, a history by John Benz. Here's another one. Updated edition, A History of Ethiopia by Harold G. Marcus. The Ethiopian Borderlands by Richard Pankhurst. This is the book we're working on right now. We're almost done with it. And get ready. Here we go. Get ready. Now, my friend, Brother Ferguson, he said this book was short. Okay, it was good, but it was short. Okay, I got you. Yeah, the revised edition is coming soon. Okay, the Crusades and Jihad in East Africa, an untold history of faith, resistance, and power. Okay, now I got a bonus for you. Here's the bonus mini lesson. Here you go. Now, what do you think? Y'all just let me know. What do you think about when you hear the Crusades? What do you think? What do you think about when you hear the Crusades? When you hear about the Crusades, what do you think about? Okay. Now, some people, when they hear the Crusades, when they hear about the Crusades, they think about the Europeans versus the Arabs, right? Okay. Yeah, that's what happened. They would think about the Europeans versus the Arabs, right? And it's straight East versus West, right? This is a map of the Crusades right here, and this was going on between the 1096 to 1204, right? From East versus West and all that kind of thing, right? So get this, we gotta discuss something else, right? What do you think about when you hear about Africa in the Middle Ages or in the same time frame? What do you think? What do you remember? Some of my African scholars and African scholars they would naturally think when they think about medieval Africa, they go straight to Timbuktu, right? Nothing wrong with that. All right, but get this: there was something else happening at the same time. Okay, there was something that was going on in East Africa at the same time. Okay, during the Middle Ages, right? So during that, there was the Crusades and Jihad. Okay, let me show you what I mean. Um, in in 642 Common Era, the Battle of Dongola, that is the first Christian Muslim war, and it was an African Christian and Muslim war. Nubian archers versus the Arab cavalry, 20,000 Arab invaders. Okay, Nubian archers or the pupil smiters. They according to Arabic speaking record, they blinded 150 soldiers, and so the people of the Muslims left. Okay, and so they left it. They had to leave. Yeah, yeah, Muslims versus Christians. Yeah, and the thing is, at this time, uh, during the Battle of Dongola, which was located in Nubia. Nubia was part of the Coptic Church. They was part of the Kingdom of Makuria. Okay, they was part of the Kingdom of Makuria. Let me show. That's their image. Looks something like this, right? On the right hand side, this is the Zagwe dynasty image right here on the left hand side. On the left side, right? All this was happening. Okay, but Makuria was active from from 500 all the way up to 1200 CE, right? And so yeah, so this is a age old conflict. This was 453 years before the very first crusade. While Europe was still in the dark ages, African kingdoms was already fighting and winning religious wars. Okay, that's one. Now, at the same during the crusades, there was Red Sea raids. There was Red Sea raids, right? They had, let me show you. They had European crusaders on African soil. This was happening at the same time. When we was focused on, let me see, on these guys here. Okay. There was European invaders, crusaders more specifically, on African soil. Let me get back to it. All right. Right around here. We have Renaud de Chatillon. Okay. He was a leader in Jerusalem. He lands, let me get this map. He lands at uh Adab. He goes, get this, he goes from Jerusalem and he lands at Adab. Right here. That is Nubian territory. Okay. That is Nubian territory. And so he sends raiding parties into Africa. He sends small forces, small battalions into Africa. Okay. This was for my military people, this was an amphibious assault. An amphibious assault. A lot of modern scholars would say they had Red Sea battles, but they had to land somewhere. And so this Jerusalem leader left Jerusalem, who had a French background, left Jerusalem, had a French background, landed in Nubia, and started raiding these small towns. Then get this. When he was done, he crossed the street. He crossed the Red Sea into Jeddah. And get this, by him being that close to Jeddah, guess where he was close to? You're right, Mecca and Medina. He was like, okay, since you guys are threatening Jerusalem and everything, we're going to be at Mecca's back door. Yeah. So guess what Saladin had to do? He had to divert forces from Jerusalem and send them down this way. Yeah, this was happening at the same time. Okay, why was it important? Because every soldier Saladin sent to Sudan was a soldier that was not available to fight at Jerusalem. His forces and rulers, and military power was split, and every resource spent defending the Red Sea was a resource not being spent in Jerusalem. Okay, not to mention, not only we had a Jerusalem spy and Mecca's back door, Saladin's brother Turan Shah was pushing south. This was happening at the same time as the European Crusades. Same time. Yeah, yeah. We're gonna talk in this book. We're gonna talk, right? So yeah, and then we had the in centuries later, 1543 CE, the Battle of Wanga Daga, the Ethiopian. This before Taytu, Ethiopia nearly falls but survives. Right, the governor Galawidus, he was Christian versus Imam Ahad Garan. I'm sorry, Ahmad Garan. He was backed. Get this, backed by the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire nearly conquers or take over Ethiopia. But in the meantime, Portuguese provided 400 musketeers, but the Ethiopians commanded those soldiers, Portuguese soldiers. Ahmad, Ahmad Garan, he was killed in battle. Ethiopia survives the war, but they told the Portuguese, say, just because you helped us, don't mean you run anything. Yeah, but get this: if Ethiopia had fallen in 1543, the Ottoman Empire would have controlled the entire Red Sea region. Okay, they would have controlled. Let me see it better. This entire area, the Ottoman Empire would have, and that's a lot. The reason why there were so many battles in the Red Sea, we're going to discuss this a little bit later. Not today though. They was trying to control the resources. There was if you control the resources, you control the money. So they was trying to control the resources, who goes in and out of this area. Okay. And during this time, if the Muslims was able to uh fight both in Jerusalem directly and encircling the other way, they would have been surrounded. But also the Europeans knew that too. And so this war was being fought, the Crusades were being fought on multiple fronts at the same time. It wasn't just the Europeans versus, say, the Arabs. It was the Europeans, the Arabs, and the Africans. Yeah, yeah. And of course, we have the Battle of Adwa, where this pattern continues, right? But there is a strategic hinge. What is that? What is a strategic hinge? What is that? It's basically, this is my argument. This is my statement, that it shows that East Africa is specifically Nubia or Sudan and Ethiopia. They were not background stories or backstories to the Crusades. They were active participants in the Crusades. Matter of fact, they were central. Okay, they were central to what was going on. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna show you why. Now, they had they had to control the Red Sea. They had to control the global trade, because that connects Europe to Africa, Asia. You can get frankincense, myrrh, gold, ivory, spices, and whoever controls the Red Sea controls global commerce. So Ethiopia at the time controlled these choke points. They controlled Massawa at the time and Zelia. So Zela, right? So Massawa was a major port, and Zelia was a trade hub. And of course, they had the Highland Territory. So if you lose Ethiopia, you lose the Red Sea, right? And they also had military resource allocation. Okay, think about this. So we had the strategic hinge, right? They needed the Red Sea. Control the Red Sea, you control the power, right? They needed that. The Arabs and the Europeans needed that, but the Africans said, "No, you can't get that." Right? Another thing, Saladin's he had a three-front dilemma. Okay, he had multiple things going on at the same time. It wasn't just them versus Jerusalem. Okay, front number one, of course, was Jerusalem. Everybody knows that, fighting the European Crusaders, right? Then front number two, okay, Nubia and Yemen. He had to secure the southern border. His brother tried to help him with that. And then the third front, of course, the Fatimids and his group, the Ayyubids, were going back and forth in Egypt and Syria. So he had some issues. He had Jerusalem issue, he had the Nubian issue, and the Egyptian issue. he was trying to handle all that. Okay, get this. So if Saladin, if he deployed, let me get to, if he deploys 5,000 troops to Nubia, okay, that's 5,000 troops that can't be over here in Jerusalem. That includes weapons, supplies, leaders, and everything. It was divided. Okay, this weakens his position, right? But not only that, Europe had the same problem. Okay, because Jerusalem sent a small amphibious assault group down to the Red Sea. That's manpower lost. Okay, and then some of them did die, right? Then 400 years later, a couple hundred years later, Portuguese send 400 soldiers to Ethiopia in 1541. That's not 400 soldiers, not in India, not in Brazil. They were sent to Africa. Okay, this was a multi-front war that was happening in the Crusades. It wasn't just East and West. It included the South, right? So there was also economic choke points. As I said before, they had to flow through everything. The money flowed through the Red Sea, right? And so frankincense, myrrh, worth more than gold. Chinese, don't forget, the Eastern world, Chinese porcelain, right? They can get 53,000 units of porcelain, 500,000 during the Crusades era. Not to mention gold, ivory, and servants or slaves or whatever, prisoners of war, spices from India, Arabian horses. But who controlled that though? Who controlled the Red Sea at this point? Okay, the Ethiopians did. And of course, the Zanj civilization. Shout out to the family in Tanzania, right? The Ethiopian ports in Massawa. And not to mention those Muslim sultanates, the Adal and people in Yemen, they controlled their ports. So the idea was if you control these ports, you control the wealth. Losing these ports, you have economic collapse. This is why they fought. It wasn't theology, and religion and all philosophical concept. It was economics. It was money. But also, okay, in my book, also we're going to talk about the spiritual legitimacy. Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant and other sacred relics. Ethiopian tradition says they housed the Ark of the Covenant has been housed in exile since in 950 before Common Era. The Europeans was obsessed with trying to find the Ark to prove Christian legitimacy. They got to find the Ark. And so in the 1500s, the Portuguese Jesuits searched for it relentlessly, but they got kicked out. We'll talk about that though. So they was looking for the Ark. They were looking for Prester John. They were looking for these kind of figures or some kind of sacred relic they could take back home. If Ethiopia has the Ark, Ethiopian Christianity basically is legitimate. But if Rome controls the Ark, the Roman Catholic Church is legit. But if the Muslims destroy it, Islam wins, right? This was a spiritual and political warfare that was happening, y'all, right? All at the same time. All these moving pieces, okay? And we have this is the Jesuits, y'all. I gotta them folk was doing too much. They was being all diplomatic, and the Ethiopians said, "Nah, bro, y'all need to leave." Right? And so because they knew, the Ethiopians knew that by guarding the Ark, they guarded their sovereignty and their control. Right? So and one more thing, we had the triple confrontation. This was not a binary two-way conflict. This was a three-way conflict, because most of the time is the standard narrative for the Crusades. Okay, during this time, the standard narrative for the Crusades is Christians, the Europeans versus the Muslims of the Middle East. This was a three-way conflict. Okay, the three-way conflict. Okay, normally they'll say Christians versus Europe, versus Muslims or whatever. But this is three-way conflict. Okay. And so force number one, the Ayyubid dynasty, that was in the north. Okay. Force number two, the European powers, which was the West, Christian intrusion, and the third power, Makuria and the Zagwe dynasty, that was in the South. Okay, think about it. The Ayyubi dynasty. Okay, the leader was Salahuddin. Okay, he was based in Egypt and Syria. He unified Egypt and Syria in 1174. His brother Turan Shah had campaigns and conflicts southward. And his brother invaded Nubia. His brother also conquered Yemen. He couldn't really win against the Nubians, so he had to cross the street. The goal was to eliminate any Christian kingdoms that could ally with the Crusaders. Okay, why the Southern Front mattered to Saladin? You can't focus on Jerusalem if Nubia is attacking you from the south. You can't control the Red Sea if Ethiopia's allies with or they cool with Europeans. You must secure Egypt's southern border first to move forward, right? So we had that. Then we had the European powers. Okay, that's the West. The key players. Who's the key figures? Shout out to Brother Fergus and Brother Mo. The Knights Templar. Okay, and other crusaders. It wasn't just the Knights Templar, but they're the most famous, right? Yeah. Greeting. What's going on, Grand Manatero? Yeah, is it greetings? Is it sorry about that, but both was working together. But that we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that because what I found and what I've learned is that the African nations was not helping anybody. And there's been times where the African nation did try to appeal to the European nations, and they did not, during later centuries or whatever, but that didn't happen, right? But during the Crusade era, no. But I guess you can say that both, say, the Muslims and the European Christians were working together in the sense of trying to take over East Africa. Okay, you can see that. You can say that. But what I do know is that based on what I found and read firsthand, dealing with primary sources, that the Nubians and the Ethiopians weren't having it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But that's cool. But the European powers, they had the Knights, and then we had Renaud de Chatillon from he was a leader in Jerusalem, but he conducted the Red Sea raids, in 1182 to 83, and also the Portuguese in the 1600s. Their goal was to break Muslim trade monopolies, and it was also looking for a guy named Prester John, the legendary Christian king from the East, and they was trying to get relics like the Ark of the Covenant, but most importantly, they wanted to control the Red Sea ports. Why East Africa mattered to Europe? There was another trade route to Asia, bypassing Muslim controlled Mediterranean. They had maybe a Christian ally in Africa, but ironically, when people like Reginald Chatillon from Jerusalem invaded Nubia, a Christian nation, Makuria at the time, that was Christian nation against Christian nation. I guess he didn't care about none of that. He cared about their land though, right? And they wanted wealth. They wanted gold, spices, and ivory. Then we have Makuria and the Zagwe dynasty, the South. Okay, this is Nubia, this is Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia. The advantages that they had, there was Christian kingdoms since the 4th century. They controlled the Red Sea ports, and it was theologically different than the Roman Catholic Church. And they had the Ark of the Covenant, according to their stories, according to the Kesha Nagas. I think it's Kesha Nagas. I forgot. I got to look it up now. Let me see. I think it's the Kesha Nagas, or I think the Glory of the Kings. Kebra Nagas. Okay, I got it. Kebra Nagas. Okay. Of course, the Kebra. I got to look it up. According to the Kebra Nagas, they had the Ark of the Covenant, and they preserved sovereignty against modern Islam and Western European pressure, maintained control of the Red Sea trade. They protected their orthodoxy, their beliefs from both Islamic conquest and Catholic imperialism, because truth be told, these people, the Crusaders, were Catholic. They were not Protestant. Okay, for some of the people who like to ascribe to the Crusaders, they were Roman Catholic. They were not Anglican. They were not Baptist or Methodist. I'm just saying. That's for free. All right, now, yeah, 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 and so they 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 would accept some help every now and then, but they maintained their control, and they did kick out the Jesuits. They did do that, and so my thing is based on what I've studied and what I've found. This was a triangle. This conflict was a triangle and not a straight line. Okay, this was a triangle, east, west, south, not just east and west. Okay, all three competing for the same prize. That is Red Sea control, economic wealth, strategic position, and spiritual power. None can eliminate the others. Ayubids didn't conquer Ethiopia, too many mountains. Europeans can't colonize the Red Sea. It's too far and too expensive. Okay, Ethiopians can't expand northwest, surrounded by the enemies, right? Um, and so they they had a three-front war going on. Okay, and this stalemate lasted for centuries. Okay, and yeah, traditionally is you see the Crusades east versus west, but it was more of a triangle, east, west, and south. And we're going to discuss that in my book. We're going to discuss that. And this was um a multiple front war timeline. Get this, I'm gonna tell you this really quick. I'm gonna tell you this. During the first Crusades, of course, this is what they would say. This is how normally it would go. Okay, if you're studying Crusade history. The first Crusade, in 1095, Jerusalem was captured. Second Crusade, 1147, uh, they failed to retake Edessa. 1180s, we have Saladin, and then 1291, the fall of Acre. All right, at 1291, basically the Crusades officially end. Right, but what they don't teach you, is that uh, they don't tell you about the 651 Battle of Dongola. The Nubians defeat the Arab invasion, which began a 600-year treaty. They won't tell you that while the Second Crusade was happening in 1147 to 1149, Portuguese, the French was exploring the African coast, and the Zagwe dynasty was rising in Ethiopia. What they're not going to tell you, right before Saladin recaptures Jerusalem, his brother was going further south into Nubia and Yemen, right? So during the 1170s and 1180s, Saladin was focused on Jerusalem. His brother was focused on Nubia in the south. And when Jerusalem tried to send spies to the back door of Mecca over here, let me see. When they tried to send spies that way, um, he had to respond. Okay, and so also not to mention the 1270s and 1250s to 1270s to the 1540s, the Ethiopian Muslim wars continued. Okay, and then of course the battles between say the Ethiopian leaders and the imams, and then the Portuguese tried to intervene. See, there's a pattern. Almost every major traditional event, there was an East African event that was happening at the same time. This was a coordinated global war, but most historians just tease one part of it, the one that everybody knows, right? But they ignore East Africa that was happening. Okay, so yeah, this is the book. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about. But yeah, but to understand, there's some key ideas I want you guys to know. The triple confrontation. This describes the three-way global power struggle between Saladin's family, the Ayyubids, the European military orders, and the Zagwe dynasty of the South. The Southern Front. This is another key idea I want you guys to understand. Positioning East Africa, Sudan, and Ethiopia as a primary theater of the Crusades rather than peripheral or a forgotten region. The strategic hinge, another concept. The argument that East African religious conflicts were the hinge or the glue that impacted the outcome and resource allocation of the better known European campaigns in the Holy Land. So, yeah, this is the book. Okay. I'm telling you what's inside of it. You got to find out, right? It's coming soon. Give me about a few more weeks. It is 500 plus pages of information, 600 chapters, and it's in parts, right? Got the ancient foundations, the first confrontation, the Crusades. Of course, we know that. Then we get into the heart of it, which is the Southern Front, and that's gonna be fun. And then the echoes of the Crusades, the fog of war, and everything. So, yeah, this is something we're gonna get in on. This is gonna be a lot of fun. So, yeah, this is coming soon. Give me a few more weeks, and we're almost done with that. But yeah, that's coming up. It says, as we may have it in this time and hour, same thing is playing out in real time. The little land in the Middle East is taking over Somaliland fighter for Red Sea. Yeah, it's yeah. Yet again, here we are, right? Yeah, yeah. And also, are we in the minds of other folk? Yeah, all the time. All the time. Like living rent free. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, coming up, yeah, we got the book that's coming up and a online course. We got a few online courses coming up also. The Crusades of Jihad is going to be an online course, and I'm working on doing some lecture series live and in color, and of course the podcast. But I'm going to be live and in color doing lecture series at say Pan African Bookstore in Dallas. Shout out to them. And a book signing. So get ready for that. That's gonna be fun. And decoding the symbols for those who may not they hear what the Ankh and the Jed is, but they may not know what it is. I got that for you too. But yeah, we got a few online courses, and for those who are interested in teaching African history, I'm working on a cohort for that. I'm working on that. Yeah, it said the war to destroy East Africa, Christian. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. So give me a few more weeks. I got a few more things to add to it. But yeah, it's 99.5% done. Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And a lot of people found the first book pretty interesting. This is going to cook. It's going to be fun because we neglect the fact that East Africa was very active during the Middle Ages, right? And so, yeah. And so, shout out to the fam. We got Ujumbe members. Shout out to the Ujumbe members. Much love to Sister Bina Scott, Brother Mo, and Brother Isu, One Voice Africa. Yeah, they thanks to their support, we got a lot of great things coming. So thank you. They're the ones that get to see the videos first, get all the information first, and all the things. And because they support, thank you guys. I'm able to be as productive as I can be. Are the books on Amazon? Yes, it will be. The books will be on Amazon. Yes, indeed. This one is already out. Decoding Symbols is a ebook right now, but the physical print copy is going to be done hopefully by March or April once we get done with finalizing the Crusades and Jihad. This is a labor of love here. This is very personal. This is my life's work here. If I can give anything to the African history community, this is it. This is all I got for you. I did this book. I did it as a thesis paper at Paul Quinn College, and they said write about something that very few people have ever talked about. And I said, I bet. So I discovered this story, and I did some research. So it was very, I didn't go to East Africa. I didn't know Arabic at the time. I didn't know Coptic at the time or Ge'ez at the time. I still don't. So it still has we have a ways to go in understanding that region and what was happening. But this is what I got. Yeah, so it will be on Amazon. I'll keep you guys posted. Yeah. And those who are on the newsletter, you guys will know it first. All right. But yeah. So, and join the membership. Membership has its privileges and all the things. They get the new videos and all the stuff and all the information. But I got to check roll. I got to check roll. Yeah, I got to check roll. Now, here we go. Shout out to Brother Fatah, Muhammad, Evelyn Rose, Mandela Circle, Danilo Narain, The Leak, Pan African Bookstore, The Doc Shop in Fort Worth. Shout out to them. Shout out to Nubian, Navi, Baba Kaba, Noni Cafe. Shout out to Libraries Without Border, Miss Blue, Brother Ferguson, Sister Kiara, Zip, Tippy Slim, Solana Music, and the alumni. Now, if you are here and I didn't call your name, like and comment the word here or present. Okay. Shout out to Jadamni Williams. Shout out to the fam. Okay. And I see who else was in here. Miss Blue is here. She would rather sneeze than than forget forget a ritual mid sentence. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, the books will be on Amazon. But yeah, recap. Who was Empress Taytu? The Treaty of Wachali, the esoteric foundations of modernity, parallels to other African queens, and the bonus. But the question, will it be on Amazon? Yes, it will be. Yeah, we're gonna cook. Give me a few more weeks. And so, yeah, I gave you the bonus, the Crusades of Jihad a little bit, the strategic hinge. And so, yeah, if you like the content, share it with somebody that may enjoy it, and share it with on your social media of choice. Don't just share it to random folk that may not like this stuff. Share it with somebody who will. You see what I'm saying? But before we go, are there any questions or concerns? Are there any questions or concerns before we go? I know it's ice. I know from people up north in the northern part, the Midwest, Chicago, New York and everything, in Canada. You guys are used to this cold, but bro, I ain't in Texas. We don't play like that. It's straight up ice around here, and folk can't drive. So, but yeah, but be safe, okay? Take care of yourself, take care of each other. But before we go, are there any questions? Because we just got to talking about the hidden blueprint of Ethiopian sovereignty, Taytu Betul, and the architecture of freedom. Are there any questions before we go? Okay. If there are no questions, listen to King Cam Ujumbe Podcast. Ujumbe means message. And thank you for coming, and talk to you later.